Is it recording? Are we record? I think we are recording. Hold on, not yet. All right, guys, welcome back to No Filter MMA. This is your boy BJ back. Of course, you guys probably recognize my boy Sergio here, Quarantine Cast, Bloody Canvas MMA. And guys, I want to welcome to you the newest member of the Bloody Canvas family, my boy Jacob. Jacob, welcome in, man.
I'm glad to be here, man. I was down to talk some MMA. When you texted me a few minutes ago, I was like, all right, I'm in. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, man. So tell us what you do, man. Like where you come from as far as like MMA journalism and whatever.
So I started an MMA podcast back in February. We started off with Wilder Fury 2, and then, it just kind of blew up from there. We only did 3 episodes before all this COVID stuff happened. And then when the UFC came back, we've since cranked out. We've gotten to episode 101, which just came out today. So
Hell yeah.
I'm so I'm pretty pleased with how we're doing with that. You can catch 101. John and Gene just came on that one. So yeah, we're doing all right here.
That's what's up, man. Well, listen, bro, we are more than happy to have you as a part of the Bloody Canvas family. We get down over here, bro, and it turns into a riot sometimes, but it is what it is. Right, sir?
So
yeah, you're absolutely right there, man.
All right, guys. So we gonna come to this video. This video is about UFC 250. Is it 257? 257. Yeah. UFC 257 co-main and main events. Now I'm getting an echo from somebody.
I am too.
Jacob, just mute when somebody's talking, just mute. Okay.
Okay.
Maybe that'll do it. But anyways, guys, bingo. We are talking Dan Hooker versus Michael Chandler. This is a huge fight. Of course, guys, both of you know that when Dana White likes somebody, when somebody's when somebody's in Dana White's pocket, the opportunities just come out of thin air. So we all know Michael Chandler, former two-time Bellator champion, and we know that he has yet to step into the UFC cage, but he's already been a backup for the Khabib Gaethje fight, and he's arguably one fight away from a title shot. So, but standing in front of him, guys, is a lethally dangerous fighter in Dan Hooker. So I'm gonna start with you, Jake. I'm gonna give you the floor, man. Let you talk, see what you got to say about this. What are your thoughts? What were your initial thoughts when you heard that Michael Chandler was going to be fighting? For one, when he was going to be fighting Dan Hooker, and for two, when he made that comment at the press conference that Dan Hooker made that comment that Charles Oliveira said that he would make the weight in time to fight Michael Chandler. So, I mean, it's a risky fight, but I'm gonna let you talk, Jacob. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, for sure. So when I heard that, Dan the Hangman Hooker was going to be fighting Michael Chandler, I was like, all right. I mean, I love Dan Hooker. I mean, all those guys from City Kickboxing are absolutely hilarious. So he's just a fun guy in general. And I think I'd be more excited for the fight if this fight happened 5 years ago. Because Michael Chandler's, he's about 34, 35. I mean, he still got it. He put Benson Henderson on his butt when they fought a few months ago. But, and when Dan Hooker made that comment about Oliveira, I mean, he just fought a month prior. I mean, I don't know what damage he took. I didn't really see it didn't seem like he took much. It seemed like Tony Ferguson was on the bad end of that. But I bet you Oliveira could make the weight. If Tony Ferguson can make it in 2 times in 3 weeks back at 249, I don't think there's really an excuse for that. But this should be an interesting fight, and I'm intrigued to see what happens.
Go ahead, Serge. What you think, man? Same questions, man. What did you think about the comment that Dan Hooker made at the press conference, and what did you think about, what was your initial thoughts? Because we were all thinking, Serge, like we were all talking in the comment section, like who is it going to be? Like who is it going to be who welcomes Michael Chandler? Like I said, it is a risky fight. Go ahead, Serge.
No, I initially thought it was going to be Nate Diaz. That being said, I love this fight. When it first got announced, I was a bit surprised because Michael Chandler was the alternate for the strap So to me, it's like, why would you risk that against a guy like Dan Hooker? I mean, you're one fight away. You should be fighting guys like Connor, guys like Charles Oliveira, not a guy coming off a loss. That being said, Dan Hooker is no slouch. I mean, he had that crazy fight with Paul Felder and the crazy fight with Dustin Poirier. So it's very dangerous. This guy's tough. He's gonna be in there all 3 rounds. And I think what's favorable in this matchup for Michael Chandler is that it is only 3 rounds. I think if this was a 5-round fight, Dan Hooker's used to those wars going 5 rounds, right? So he and more recently as well. I mean, he's in more 5-round fights than Chandler has in the past few years. So it would be a favorable matchup, I think, for Hooker had it been 5 rounds. So I think it's a good fight for Chandler, but I don't see why he would be taking that, why he would even risk it. As for the comment, Charlie Olives is by far the funniest nickname I've heard in a little while. Throw that out there. That's hilarious.
That was awesome.
I'm never calling him Charles Oliveira again. But yeah, I mean, but that's very similar to Charles Oliveira, though. It's like, you've been on a tear for how many years now you put on this ridiculous win streak. Why risk that? Why risk that against a newcomer? So I don't necessarily think that it was a bad move on his part. Take the time that you need, go in there, because no matter what, Charles Oliveira's next fight is #1 contender fight. Whether it takes place in February or June, it doesn't really matter. So to risk it against a guy who's unranked, why? Why bother? So I'm not against him not taking it. Do I think the weight cut thing really is an issue? I don't think so. I think it's more of a let's pick a good matchup at the right time. But yeah, I love this matchup, and I think it's going to be a great fight.
So with that being said, let me ask you, Jacob. I want to pick up something that I've noticed throughout this whole thing. Everyone knows that Michael Chandler comes from Bellator. Everyone knows this. Not one time have you heard UFC media mention the name Bellator. All the packages embedded when you're talking about Michael Chandler, when the reporters are asking him questions, you never once hear the word Bellator. Do you think that that's like a memo that went out to Dana White, like, don't say this fucking name, like, I don't give a fuck. Well, even if it is Michael Chandler, like, I don't want to hear that fucking name. Go ahead, Jacob.
You make an interesting point. Well, when they introduced him at the press conference yesterday or the weigh-ins today, I don't remember, but they did mention that the 2-time former Bellator. That's the only time they ever mentioned it, and I think you make a valid point there, BJ. But the thing is, like, Bellator's just full of bums these days. Let's be real here. I mean, I'm gonna be frank. I mean, yes, Dylan.
He went there, Serge. He went there, bro.
I did know that. I'm gonna be honest. I mean, Gegard Mousasi and Douglas Lima really fighting for a middleweight. Like, Gegard Mousasi's prime was 6 years ago. But I'm getting off topic here. But when we talk about when we talk about it not being mentioned, Bellator's prime was 5 years ago when he was reigning when he was the champ and stuff like that. So it's not really relevant anymore in his perspective, not his perspective, but where Bellator stands right now. Because Bellator back then is not the same Bellator today.
Jacob is coming in with the heat, man. Like, Serge, I'm sorry, man, but he took me aback a little bit, man. Like, woo, Jacob. Man, Jacob said Bellator is full of bums. Woo, boy. Okay, man. I hear you, boss. I hear you, man. I just thought it was kind of like I just kind of felt like it was a kind of like a nudge from Dana White to not have the UFC. I mean, they introduced him as a former 2-time world champion, but they never said Bellator. Like, after the the first few packages started coming out with the videos, like, I started listening. I'm like, I wonder if they're going to say former Bellator champion, and never once did I hear it. So, and even people who've been in Bellator, that have already fought in the UFC, you never hear them say former Bellator champion. Like, you never hear that. You know what I'm saying? But if you watch Bellator, you hear a lot. You hear Bellator brass and media say UFC a lot, but you don't hear that from the UFC. I just thought that was something. So, stylistic wise, you know what I'm saying? Like, how does this fight play out, guys? Like, I mean, it's an interesting matchup, but for me, I feel like I feel like maybe Michael Chandler hasn't faced the level of well-roundedness that Dan Hooker is, but I felt like Dan Hooker has seen Michael Chandler before. Like I just can't help but feel like, style-wise that he's seen Michael Chandler before. Go ahead, guys.
I think to add to that, it's not that he hasn't seen a guy like Dan Hooker before. It's just that he hasn't seen someone like that in a while, And I'm not gonna go on a limb and say Bellator is full of bums, but you look at that division, it's not what it used to be, right? Guys like Eddie Alvarez, guys like Will Brooks have kind of come and gone, and their time is no longer really. I guess they aren't really elite anymore. So it's been a while since we've seen Michael Chandler against some really elite competition. He beat Ben Henderson, who obviously is a former UFC lightweight champion, but how long ago was he champion, right? So I feel like it really has been a while since we've seen Michael Chandler in that kind of war against a guy like Dan Hooker. That being said, Dan Hooker recently has had 2 fights with guys very, very similar to Michael Chandler, So I think the key to this victory for Michael Chandler is try to get Dan Hooker on the back foot. Try to get in there. Obviously, Dan Hooker's longer. He's rangier. He's taller. Get in there, grind him out. Try to get him down on the mat, which is a lot easier, or it's a lot harder than it is to just say it. And for Dan Hooker, it's keep things at bay. I mean, he's got vicious knees. You saw what he could do against Ross Pearson. I mean, the list of knockouts the guy has is ridiculous. And just, keep the guy at bay. That's the key to victory here for Dan Hooker is keep Michael Chandler at range. And for Michael Chandler, it's the opposite. So it'll be very interesting.
Chandler's got elite wrestling. His wrestling is really, really,
D1.
really good.
He's a D1 wrestler, right?
Go ahead, Jacob. What you got to say about?
Well, I think you make a good point. He has faced someone like Michael Chandler, elite wrestling wise. Hooker faced Jim Miller, who's a top-notch grappler, and I think Chandler said he's going to put Hooker on his back. That's a tough task to do. Let's be honest here. I mean, Dan Hooker has some of the best takedown defense in the whole UFC and MMA in general, and Hooker's taller and he just get more leverage when Chandler's trying to take him down. Will Chandler probably take him down? Probably, and also Hooker has some sneaky submission game when he's on his back. So I think Hooker in general, if this goes to the ground, he won't necessarily be in trouble. It's just not where he wants to be.
Yeah, I feel like he's more than willing to go there because Dan Hooker he's pretty well rounded. You know what I'm saying? So if it goes there, I feel like he's okay there, but I think his bread and butter, especially in a fight with someone where it's kind of flipped, Michael Chandler, you can say, is the complete opposite to Dan Hooker. Michael Chandler is the grappler who's developed a striking game, who can compete on the feet. And then you've got Dan Hooker, who is an excellent striker, but can compete on the ground. You got one that's tall and rangy, one that's short, powerful, and stocky. You know what I'm saying? So it's really a case of styles make matchup here in this fight. Would you guys agree with that?
100%. I thought he was going to speak. He ended up sneezing, but yeah, I do think it's like almost a clash of styles, which makes things very compelling. These types of fights can either go one way or another. One is it's going to be very flashy and exciting, or the other is it's going to be pretty boring. But knowing both of these guys and knowing both of the way that they fight and knowing what Michael Chandler has to prove in his debut, I feel like we're in for a real treat, especially after what Khabib said as well. He's looking for an exciting, some excitement and someone to impress him. And Dan Hooker, I think if Dan Hooker goes out there and gets a W, I don't think that's enough for him to prove that he deserves a title shot. But if he goes out there and knocks out, Bellator's poster child, I think that might make a case.
What you think, Jacob?
I think with this fight, stylistically, yes, it's complete opposites. And I think you made a good point, BJ. Dan Hooker developed the ground game, even though he's mainly a striker, and Chandler vice versa. And I think, see, even if Dan Hooker does get a complete KO win, I don't think I still don't think it's enough for a title shot, because think about it. If Michael Chandler knocks or submits Dan Hooker, um, wouldn't you think the UFC would be like former Bellator champion, the best lightweight in Bellator history versus Habib Nurmagomedov, in clash of two of the greatest lightweights of all time? That's marketable. But
Absolutely.
like Dan Hooker, I love Dan Hooker. I think you can't not like this guy. But
Right.
even if he decapitates Michael Chandler, I don't see him getting the title shot, unfortunately. Even though he's skilled enough to be a title contender, no doubt. I think he's the most underrated lightweight in the whole division, and I don't know, Dan Hooker's just in a kind of crummy situation, even if he does something spectacular.
Yeah, Jacob. I was gonna say, like, I think the situation is catered to Michael Chandler. Like, we'll see a big result come from this. You know what I'm saying? This matchup, if Michael Chandler wins. Like, if Michael Chandler wins, then they're gonna push him to a title shot. Or if it's not a title shot, it's a big fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, Dan Hooker, I feel like it's still realistically like 2 fights away, because if he beats Michael Chandler, then they're going to say, well, he should have beat Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler was from Bellator and he wasn't ranked. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's one of the, he should have beaten Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler beats him, it's a complete opposite. You know what I'm saying? So if what happens, I want to ask you guys one last question before we close this thing out, before I get your official predictions. What happens when if Michael Chandler beats him? Like, what do you guys think would be the subsequent events that happen if he gets the W out here tonight in spectacular fashion?
Well, I think, let's say Chandler gets this by decision. I think he moves into a title eliminator-esque situation against something along the lines of Gaethje or Oliveira. But I mean, if he puts Dan Hooker to bed, I think depending on how Poirier McGregor goes, I think especially if Poirier just wins by decision, I think Chandler's right up next for a title shot, and especially marketability wise. And like I said, Hooker's just not in a great situation.
Yeah, I mean, I can see him jumping a lot of those guys. The only thing that I think might hold them back a little bit is the last thing I think the UFC would like to do is say, you know what, the best lightweight in the world is someone who used to fight for rival, right? So like, why would, like, the same reason they didn't give Ben Askren a shot right away? They wanted to make him fight, because if Michael Chandler beats Dan Hooker, gets a title shot against, let's say, McGregor, beats McGregor, he's going to be like, well, the best fighters are actually in Bellator, not in the UFC, because a washed up Michael Chandler was able to go in there and beat the best lightweight in the world. So there's that side of things as well. That being said, I think, like you said, the winner of this, regardless of whether it's Dan or Michael Chandler, is probably going to get Charles Oliveira. I think that's the fight to make, and I think the winner of that would likely be next in line, because that Gaethje fight, whoever Gaethje's fighting next, I think it's Nate Diaz, would be huge for the winner of the Conor fight. Because if Conor wins, both Gaethje and Nate Diaz would be huge fights. So I think that might be what's next for that one, but I think that's another video.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely another video. So official picks, guys. Like, who do you guys have to win that fight? It's very interesting.
I'll say this. Call me crazy, but I think Hooker slips the guillotine and gets it by submission.
I have Hooker as well, but I wouldn't be surprised. I think the 3 rounds makes it more favorable for Chandler. I think the longer it goes, the more it would favor Dan Hooker. That being said, he hasn't seen the level of competition that Dan Hooker possesses in a very long time. I think it's been a while since he's seen someone like that, and you saw what happened with Pitbull. Last time he got matched up with a high-level opponent, he got finished. So I see this playing out very similar. TKO round 2.
Yeah, guys, I'm gonna go unanimous decision, Dan Hooker. I feel like Michael Chandler would be good enough to not get finished by Dan Hooker. But I do, because Dan Hooker, think about it, he couldn't finish. I mean, the war that him and Poirier was in, dude. As good as Poirier is, though, Poirier ate his best shots. You know what I'm saying, and kept it moving. But I'm gonna have to go Poirier by decision. That's what I got.
Can I add one more thing? All right. I think one you mentioned the Poirier fight. I think one thing to take into account is how has that fight changed Hooker's career? Because that was an all-out war, and I mean Hooker looked like that line was about to flatline on the stretcher into the ambulance. So he did not look good, and I'm just I forget. Big John McCarthy had an interview with Joe Diaz. He's like, wars are fun to watch, but these fighters don't want a war because of their career, because a piece of them is left in there. And there's no way pieces of Dan Hooker were not left in that octagon back in June.
I think that was the most damage I've seen. I think that's the most damage I've seen Dan Hooker. Like, that's the most in trouble Dan Hooker has really looked in a fight. Like, because he looked toward the end of that fight, like he looked hurt. Like, his body language, like he looked hurt in that fight, but it was a war. He was in there, he's fighting, but he got Poirier put it to him in that fight.
Yeah, it's like, when Gaethje beat up Ferguson, like Tony Ferguson was not the same fighter that before that when he fought Oliveira. And I'm just concerned about Hooker. Like, will he be the same fighter if this fight happened 6-8 months ago? I'd be like, you know what? I think Hooker will definitely win this, but now with the damage, I'm not so. I mean, Hooker's still going to win this in my opinion, but I'm just not as certain.
I didn't even think about that. Go ahead, Serge.
Yeah, I think damage really it usually doesn't affect someone one fight to another. It's usually something that happens, like you look at Diego Sanchez. You know what I mean? It wasn't like one night his chin was gone. It was years later it started, now we see it, against guys like Joe Lozon and Matt Brown. That being said, he was in there for 50 minutes with two of the hardest hitting 55ers, two of the toughest guys in the entire division, and Paul Felder, and neither one of those guys were able to put him away. So I don't think this next 15 minutes is going to do anything. It's not like he had a quick turnaround. So I think he's got a couple more wars in him. If I was him and I was thinking about the longevity of my career, I definitely would recommend switching up my game plan the same way Justin Gaethje did. Justin Gaethje was having those wars as well, and then he fought Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier and was forced to change it up a bit. But I don't see his chin necessarily going right away yet anyway, but it would be interesting to see how he adjusts in this fight.
And one last quick thing. I think this is the perfect comeback fight for Hooker because he's fought two high-level strikers. I mean, Poirier's just improved drastically over the past 5, 6, 7 years. And Michael Chandler, he might just take him to the ground and just grind it out. And Hooker might not take much damage in this fight at all. So I think this is the perfect bounce-back fight for Dan Hooker.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I totally agree, man. Even though Michael Chandler's not ranked, we obviously see the type of push, saying that he has, And if Dana could do it without pissing everybody off, I'm sure Dana would put a number beside Michael Chandler's name without even a fight being done. But anyways, I'm gonna go decision by Dan Hooker, man. So there you guys have it. You have our official predictions. You have what we think about this fight, guys. Guys, you go follow Jacob on Twitter. Go follow Serge on Twitter as well. YouTube, everywhere. We're everywhere, guys. Buddy Campus MMA. Of course, your boy BJ back from No Filter MMA. Drop those comments in the comment section. Hit that like button. Hit the damn dislike button. And if you guys haven't already, hit the subscribe button. And I'm out.